Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Thomas with the Post Race Inspection Podcast. I'm a little under the weather, so apologies if I get a little more nasally throughout the video. I think I'm about to have a sinus infection, but it would make me feel better if you liked the video, hit that subscribe button, and shared it with some friends and family. Really appreciate all the new subscribers that have hopped on recently. Let's just get right into it. So today, I want to recap this first weekend in motorsports where the three major series are finally racing all in the same weekend. We're going to talk about the NASCAR race at Pheonix and also the IndyCar race that happened the day before. They had a doubleheader weekend at Pheonix. And we're also going to talk about some very concerning stuff about Formula One. So they had their first race down in Australia. We'll talk about that at the end. I'm going to start off with a more detailed recap of the NASCAR race. So I'm going to be playing the highlights in the background. So here we are. Start of the race. Logano and Blaney, they started up front with Cindric. All three of the Penske cars and even Josh Berry looked really strong, as they were last year and the 5 years prior with this car. I can't believe it's already been like 4.5 years, almost 5 years since this car got premiered. The Penske cars were the best cars. They were the cars to beat in clean air. Blaney had the best car throughout the whole day, but he wasn't just hanging around in the lead all day because his pit crew tried their absolute hardest to make him lose, basically. This was not a Penske masterclass weekend by any means, at least on the NASCAR side. Blaney lost at least one spot on pit road every single pit stop, including the last pit stop. And not only that, they had two different loose wheels. They had a left front and then I think a left rear loose at two different points in the race. I think in stage 2, they both happened. And it just showed that he had the best car all day, and it was really entertaining to watch him carve through the field. Now, there was, Blaney would end up winning the first stage, but it was a pretty straightforward stage 1. Stage 2 was where it got interesting. So, as the track got hotter and hotter throughout the entire afternoon, NASCAR brought, I believe it was the same tire as championship weekend, which produced really good racing, but these teams don't abide by Goodyear's recommended minimum pressures. So guys like on screen, Kyle Busch, not having a good day. He has multiple tires go down. I think it was 2 or 3 different tires going down for him because they just start off with the pressures too low and they run on the sidewall too much. So by the time the tires get up to temp, so much material is worn off of the sidewall that they just have blowouts. That's not a car problem. SVG had the same exact thing happen. He had a tire go down one corner after Kyle Busch did. There were a lot of tire issues throughout the day, and it's not the car's fault. It's not Goodyear's fault. It's the team's. I'm tired of seeing. I'm just trying to drive this point home because I'm tired of seeing people complain about this race and races like this at Pheonix where this wasn't the fault of a worn out tire because plenty of people didn't have tire problems because they were abiding by the minimum pressures that Goodyear sent. They did tire tests at Pheonix for this reason, to determine the minimum pressures and if the compounds were right. They saw that if the teams kept it over the recommended minimum pressure, there was only like one blowout the whole day. I'm sure there was less than 1 or 2. Anyways, uh, back to it. So they keep on going after that caution for a little bit, and for a couple of laps actually. And Daniel Suarez does great things this race and gets loose and spins on his own, collects Chase Elliott. So amazing the things one can do when they're no longer considered an afterthought, as his wife said. Yeah, I mean, don't worry. He probably found a way to blame it on Trackhouse anyways. So, all these restarts happen. Bell ends up getting by Logano here, eventually. And once Logano got into dirty air, Bell kind of just checked out for the midpoint of this race until his teammate Briscoe has a brake rotor explode into turn 4, and he ends up slamming the wall, and his day ends. So that's 2 weekends in a row where Briscoe gets DNF'd for equipment failure. Last week he had a CV axle or half shaft go out and just completely strip on his car, and that made him retire. And then, this exploding brake rotor into turn 4 issue, it's not just been him at Joe Gibbs that's been affected by it, because it's happened, like it happened to Bell when he was in the championship 4 a couple of years ago. It's happened to Joe Gibbs multiple times. And then here you see, this is where Blaney started having pit road issues with the left rear being loose. So he would have to go back in or actually stop in Logano's box and get it fixed. So he would lose all those positions. Heads up by them, by the way, for them having Logano up at the very front and having Blaney stop in his box to get it fixed so that he wouldn't, drive out on track and risk it falling off. But it was really odd because in that caution period, I think it was Gragson, William Byron, Connor Zilich, and Michael McDowell all have tire issues within that same... Oh, yeah, it's right here. It wasn't the same restart, but it was a few laps down the road. Noah Gragson, William Byron, Connor Zilich, and Michael McDowell all have tire issues within... Gragson has the caution come out for him, but at the same exact time, the other three have the same exact issues. So, once again, it's not a tire issue. These guys were just pushing as hard as they could with the pressures. Byron had a tire blowout at Pheonix in November for the same thing, and that's what made Denny lose the championship. Let's not talk about that. So, they come to a restart, and they get going again. Hamlin shoots out to the lead with Keselowski in second. I think they both took 2 tires on that restart. So that allowed Bell to really check out and win stage 2. Now, restart here. Pretty straightforward again, except for Buescher having issues, and the caution would come out for that. I believe that was another tire issue. Or no, he he just got together with Zilich, and that looks like the 16 car. So there's so much happened this race, I can't even remember, including this incident, lap 216. Classic Logano, just getting too aggressive on the restart. Shades of Carl Edwards 2016, turning Ross and cleaning out 5 or 6 different cars, including Cindric, getting caught up in someone else's business once again. He absolutely pancaked the dogleg wall here. Just a really bad angle. I'm hoping he doesn't... I mean, that's got to cause a headache for sure. Yeah, it's... Classic Logano. About 10 laps later, they get restarted again, and the caution immediately comes out for SVG snapping loose and spinning around. He would actually have a pretty good day. He would rebound to finish 11th. So I wonder, it really makes you wonder, like, especially with Zilich last weekend, how good these Trackhouse guys are. Usually, they're revered mainly as road course ringers, but they've been really, really good. They've just either been getting spun out by other people and having to, no matter what it is, they've had to come back from the back of the field at least twice. It feels like every single race so far this year. Now, Logano strikes again. So instead of being on the offensive, he's on the extreme defensive here and turns himself trying to block and collects Daniel Suarez, Chase Elliott, and his other teammate, Josh Berry. I consider Josh Berry a teammate because Wood Brothers, all their stuff is through Penske anyways. So the kill count for Logano today on his teammates is 2. So that just leaves Blaney as the only Penske car left. And there's about 100 laps to go at this point. So, back green, or 75 laps, back green, Ty Gibbs having a great day. Battling with his teammates, Hamlin. It's everyone that you'd expect. All my picks were within the top 7, basically the whole day. Like, Bell, Gibbs, Blaney, Hamlin, Byron, Reddick, Bubba, they were all basically... They were all in control, aside from Logano being up there earlier. They had control of the top 7, really. Bell gets out to, once he hit clean air, he was checked out. So he got out to about a 4-second lead with around 25 to go. And then Dillon blows a tire. So, Blaney, Gibbs, Reddick, and company get 2 tires while JGR Masterclass, just like November, Bell gets 4 and surrenders the lead. So he's going to restart a couple rows behind Blaney. But here's what could have been a really important part of this. I said Blaney's pit crew tried as hard as they could to lose the race for him. He ends up surrendering a spot to Ty Gibbs, who had almost an equal car to him that previous run. So they get going green with 20 to go, and Ty Gibbs chooses the outside lane here on the restart. But Blaney just gets a better drive off, dives it down through the dogleg, and basically has him cleared. And then Reddick tries to make it 4 in a row, but overcooks it a little bit, has to back off and lose a few spots. And Larson shoots out around the outside, but then, I don't want to call them the back markers, but the back markers wreck. Unfortunately, Zane Smith getting caught up in a late race incident once again. Just an unfortunate start to the year for him, like many others. Just a bummer. It just looked like, too many cars fighting for too little spaces. John Hunter Nemechek and Cole Custer getting involved there. So, final restart with 13 laps to go. Gibbs and Larson out front. Blaney gets a monster start, pushes Gibbs out, completely clear of Larson. So now it's just a battle to see who can get to Gibbs first. And, Larson gets a little loose, allows Blaney to get clear for second place. And at this point, long run Ryan Blaney, 15 plus laps into these runs, he won the Pheonix race in November. I totally forgot about that. He would have been on my pick list for sure. He was probably 5th out of my 4 picks, so I should have picked him to win. But he gets alongside Gibbs and is able to clear him with 10 to go and really set sail at that point. So So close to his first win there, but Gibbs is going to have to settle for fourth. But coming to the checkered flag is Ryan Blaney. He is going to win and hold off Christopher Bell with Larson, Gibbs, and Hamlin rounding out your top 5. Bubba, Byron, Reddick, McDowell, and Eric Jones squeaks out a top 10. So I would say that this race, it's more than just the highlights, this race. I would give this race probably a 7.5. I would say 7.5 out of 10. Because shout out Goodyear, because they have nailed this tire along with NASCAR's 750 horsepower package. It really exemplified how much a driver can make a difference in this race, because Blaney, it's just all the guys who are the best at long run racing and tire management were at the front. All the guys who are the best at managing their stuff were able to get through the field pretty easily and get back up to the front when, either they made a mistake or their crew made a mistake. It was just really fun. It had lots of organic passing. I think Fox did a pretty decent job with the camera work, at least covering all of the different racing happening around the track. I know it's a little easier to do than at a road course, for example, but, that was about as good of a broadcast as Fox can get. So the same thing can be said really for the IndyCar race too, because the IndyCar race was fantastic the day before. This was a great showcase for how good of a track Pheonix can be for both of these series. I mean, even the O'Reilly series race was really, really good, especially at the end with the closing stage battles and all that. But basically, this whole race was kind of dominated by Christian Rasmussen, and it kind of all, well, here's a major thing. Alex Palou, defending series winner, he hasn't been out of the points lead in like 660 days or something like that, almost 2 years. And he completely clears himself up into Rinus VeeKay there. And I was listening to the Speed podcast with Will Buxton and Kevin Harvick last night to get their thoughts on it, because Will Buxton comes from an open wheel racing background. Harvick obviously comes from NASCAR. So they shared their thoughts about, this incident here. So apparently Palou didn't have any communication from his spotter saying that VeeKay was outside, which is crazy because he was 0, 1, 2, over 2 full seconds. He was over 2 full seconds that he had the outside nose on Palou. I know normal open wheel etiquette, you have to be at least halfway alongside to have a claim to the corner. But open wheel racing, the etiquette, as Harvick brought up, is completely different, because you don't want to risk chopping the nose off of someone, 15 laps into the race, 15 laps to go. You don't want to risk that. And that's what Palou did. It doesn't help that his spotter didn't say that VeeKay was on the outside, but this would happen once again later on in the race. That would cost 2 of the best cars all day the win, because here it is. So here it is. Will Power leading, Rasmussen trying to get past him with about 43 laps to go. And Rasmussen gets the front wing outside of Power, but Power shuts the door on him. It wasn't that he was fighting a tight race car or anything. Power admitted fault and apologized to Rasmussen after this, and I'm pretty sure they're teammates, by the way. Um, just a really tough way to end the day for the best car and driver combo, and also a really strong car and driver combo, probably the third best car this whole day. Power would immediately have his right rear cut, and then Rasmussen would end up having some damage that would affect his race finish. So he would restart with the lead. I don't believe he pitted during the last restart. But 10 laps to go, Kyle Kirkwood ends up passing him. And Rasmussen just fighting an ill-handling race car. His stuff is worn out. You can see that his sidewalls are painted blue from hitting the wall. It was not soft contact with that wall. These Indy cars are a lot stiffer. And, man, that just opened up the door for Kirkwood and Newgarden to make the pass on Kirkwood with 7 laps to go. There was, I'm only covering this for about 10 minutes, but there was so much good racing. IndyCar needs more ovals. We miss Texas Motor Speedway. They need to go back to Pocono. They need to go back to Michigan. I love oval racing, dude. I'm hoping to go to the Barber Motorsports Park IndyCar race because that is one of my favorite tracks in North America. Especially to watch a race at. It's just so fun. What was not fun, though, what may have been fun to some casual fans at the start, but not to me because I can see right through it, was the Formula One Australian Grand Prix. So let's talk about it. So Formula One's new formula, or new rules package, in American speak, was for this year a 50-50 power split, among other things. The most important thing was the introduction of active aero. So instead of a drag reduction system only being triggered at certain zones, this active aero would be triggered automatically throughout different sections of the racetrack. And the new 50-50 electric and ICE power split has really sparked a lot of controversy. It's very polarizing. I really hate it because it has, you'll see here, because even though it caused problems for the defending champion, or no, not the defending champion, the defending runner-up from last year, to just completely bin it on the warm-up lap, on the formation lap. So he was not able to start the race, and they have like an extra, it's going to take forever to explain all the changes with this year, but basically the 50-50 power split requires the drivers to lift off 100 yards early, like 150 yards earlier than they normally would, to harvest and regenerate power into the battery and electric power delivery system to give them like an extra, I don't know how many horsepower, like 200-300. I haven't paid much attention because I knew it was going to turn out like this. Definitely more of a casual F1 fan now than I was 3 years ago. So it made for a lot of very exciting, in quotation marks, racing, very close racing, with drivers constantly swapping positions. But let's go over to Twitter here. My boy Milad Radman, at Real Radman on YouTube and Twitter. It's bad when Formula One, their main thing was, after the race, advertising how many overtakes there were year over year. So this was the same bullshit that NASCAR said to us about the Daytona and Talladega fuel mileage, fuel saving, about, how it looks exciting because the cars, fans are on their feet because the cars are going, the cars are four wide constantly, and there's constant lead changes while they're fuel saving. But yeah, the people who aren't stupid can tell that they're going slower and that they're not actually pushing 100%. Malad says, kind of quote tweeting the overtaking tweet that F1 put out, he quoted literally the exact same thing NASCAR tried to push on their fans with the low HP package. Artificial garbage racing. He's talking about like the 2018-2019 Aero package as well, where that was also just, let's not go back to those days, please. Malad says, they actually think you're stupid. Incredible attempt at PR here. And the feedback from this race, it's not just me being negative. The feedback is so negative that this community note says F1 is actively censoring the fans' opinion about new regulations as seen in the hidden replies. So they have stopped doing it since the community note came out, but there were about, I would say, 2,500 hidden tweets or hidden replies to this. People aren't happy. People don't want to see that because once, I mentioned that there was a lot of passing at the start. There really wasn't after, like, it's bad when we are 4.5 minutes into this 8-minute highlight video and we were 18 laps in, 13 laps in when Alonso retired because Aston Martin brought such a garbage car that it has such a harsh vibration in it that the drivers literally can't drive the car without almost or maybe suffering nerve damage. So really disappointing to see. But basically after the first 20 laps, George Russell just stretched it out on everyone. Formula One has now completely crossed the boundary of, it actually being racing at the forefront. It's a really concerning direction, in my opinion, that Formula One is going into. Obviously, Australia is probably the worst for fuel saving or, energy management, I'll say. Hopefully the Chinese Grand Prix might be a little better, but there's so much that I can say about F1 that I literally don't have time for because I have about 15 minutes before I have to go. But it is really, I don't know. How do I put this? Formula One is turning more, you're not really a Formula One driver anymore. You're kind of a Formula One race manager now because they were already doing so many things in the cockpit every single lap, triggering DRS, changing the brake bias, the engine and turbocharger trims. They were already doing so much every single lap that this is another thing that they have to deal with. And they're not pushing all out anymore. Who wants to see that? Same thing with the fuel saving in NASCAR. No one wants to see them cruise around and manage a race if it's not like tires being a limitation or like a good tire fall off, a good tire producing good racing product. No one wants to see them baby the car and basically everyone except for, surprise, Mercedes and Ferrari were very negative about it. Ferrari and Mercedes teams, drivers weren't even positive about it. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. They're going to, I think F1 race directors are, or I guess like the governing body is going to give it a couple more races to determine if things need to change, which I don't know. I don't think this can be changed. They're too far. It was too drastic of a change. They can't just revert it because it's a completely different chassis now, completely different engine. So who knows? Um, I I would say the primary people to blame for this are Honda and especially Audi, because Audi would not have joined if it wasn't for the promise of the 50-50 hybrid split. So all this lobbying that both companies did ended up being very detrimental to the sport. Really hopeful to see what's next. Really concerned about the future of F1 because as of right now, NASCAR and IndyCar, in my eyes, are now officially the premier motorsports along with IMSA. So, like, America's got motorsports on lock right now. We have the 3 best motorsports series in the world. I said it. Argue with me in the comments. But make sure you like and subscribe first. So, with all that out of the way, let's talk about the point standings for the NASCAR Cup Series. So, Tyler Reddick retains and I believe actually extends his lead now. He has 225 points, and Ryan Blaney is, he retains the same amount of points lead over Bubba, so 60 points, or over Ryan Blaney, as he did Bubba the week prior. So Ryan Blaney moves up 2 spots. He is 60 points behind Reddick. Bubba drops 1. Chase drops 1. SVG still 5th in points after 4 weeks. Who would have thought, right? Trackhouse has had a great start to the year, and it's in no part thanks to their drivers. Christopher Bell has a fantastic day, jumps up 18 spots in the points. So that's another huge mover. Denny Hamlin has a great day, moves into the chase himself. Ty Gibbs goes from being almost last in full-time points to 15th inside the chase. Daniel Suarez had a really bad day, obviously. Brad Keselowski still hanging in there. Had a decent day. It's just that other people had really good days. So they're still hanging in there. Another people to watch. I would give 2 people to watch these next few weeks to really see if they can dig themselves out of this hole, because they're running out of time at this point. Unfortunately, it looks like Alex Bowman is not going to make the chase because, he's sitting out for at least this upcoming weekend due to his vertigo problem that he had at COTA and ended up having to sit out this weekend. I didn't even mention that. That's how little I think about Alex Bowman, unfortunately for him. I hope he does feel better, though. But Chase Briscoe and Connor Zilisch sitting 33rd and 34th in points. So this is no fault of their own. Every single race so far this year, both of those guys have ended up getting caught up in other people's business or were the victims of mechanical failures. Obviously, a terrible start for them. I hope to see Chase Briscoe back up in the chase. They're running out of time, obviously. We're a month into the season already, so it might be too late. But Chase Briscoe, Connor Zilisch, 47 points, 45 points each, respectively. Brad is 16th with 100 points. So either of them can go out and win a stage. Like Zilich can win a stage the next 2 races, finish in the top 15, and he's right back up there. Chase Briscoe, who knows? He can go out there and win Vegas next weekend and be right back up there. But they got to get the ball rolling. They got to get some luck coming their way. It's just really hoping to see what they can do. So, I guess to finish us off for this episode, I'm going to give out my top picks. So, my top picks for Vegas this upcoming weekend. So, I made a little spreadsheet here that shows my picks week to week, as well as my percentage that I got correct. So far through 4 races, I have, out of, the 4 people that I pick every single week as potential winners, I have picked the winner correct 50% of the time up to this point. 2 out of the 4 races, I have picked one of the drivers that ended up winning. My top 4 pick percentage is a little worse. It's about 37.5%. But I'm looking to raise it up a little bit. I'm gonna this weekend at Vegas. My 4 picks are Logano, Blaney, Bubba, and Larson. So Logano, you can never count him out at Vegas. I would say same thing for Larson. Vegas is extremely good for them. I would say if it comes out to be, because it's an intermediate track, if it ends up being a long run race to the end, Blaney will be up there, assuming he doesn't get caught up in someone else's trouble. And my dark horse for the race is Bubba, because he's really good at this track. So that'll be it for this episode. I gotta go back off to work. I took a little break. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Have a good one.